Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again for a second round of questions. I want to go back to something that I raised earlier, and it is regarding the recommendation by the National Academies about a 5% inflationary increase in the budget. And although I understand that for the specific purpose of looking at 2017 slippage to 2018, that's not what we're talking about. But I want to know about the program. And would it be useful for both the administration to recommend and Congress to incorporate this margin that the National Academies has recommended? So that we, over a period of time, that we're not looking at the questions that are being raised today. Just, give us some guidance. Okay, flip a coin. Yes, Ms. Chaplain.
I would just add that that's not the first time a recommendation like that has been made. It was made at the tail end of the Constellation Program by the Augustine Commission, and I think they recommended about $3 billion additional a year, which was pretty significant, and that was their view of what was needed over a number of different paths that you would take, not just the Constellation path. They mentioned a path similar to what is being done here.
And that would provide a lot more stability than what we're seeing now, wouldn't it?
Yes, and the other thing to remember is programs like this have spikes in terms of their funding needs. So Constellation Program itself, when that recommendation was made, was asking for about $3 billion a year, but in their budget they went up to as much as $7 billion a year in terms of their needs. So there are spikes depending on what you're developing and when activities come up.
I want to just ask really briefly, in the Department of Defense large-scale programs, they don't go through this. They set out, kind of a goal. It crosses Congresses. They know that there's a difference in these kind of large-scale development programs. Why is it that we're funding a scientific program that has a lot of uncertainties year by year, and in some cases a few months by a few months? Don't we actually end up wasting way more money over the long term by doing that than just setting out a goal of making sure that we fund this program in the most robust way possible across Congresses so that the goal is achieved? Why isn't there modeling for these large-scale science programs the same way that there's that kind of modeling for defense programs? And has GAO ever analyzed that and what the impact would be to the success of the programs?
We've never analyzed NASA funding compared to DoD funding, but we do know when funding stretched out, the problems you're describing do occur. It's not like all the DoD systems don't experience some kind of instability. It's rare when Congress is trying to give more money than what they're asking for. Sometimes there's a reverse case where Congress gives a little less. But with programs with a lot of schedule pressure and everybody recognizes...
And experimentation.
Yes, but programs where everybody recognizes a date is important to deliver, there tends to be more support funding-wise, and it tends to be more stable.
Mr. Gerstenmaier, do you have a comment about that?
No, I think, again, the discussion is good. Some understanding and stability in budget would be helpful. At least matching inflation would be helpful. But again, I think the problem is we deal, as you described very succinctly, that with essentially a year budget, sometimes months, we throw in furloughs and other things just to make, and those are real impacts to us. When we stood down effectively for 2 weeks where we couldn't do any work on Orion during that time, and how do you plan for that in a programmatic sense is extremely difficult. So it's a tribute to my teams that take this environment that is very dynamic and figure out a way to make as significant progress as we can, not waste funds, not use funds in an inappropriate manner, but it's difficult for the teams to do that, but they've done a fairly good job, as we've seen through this activity. It could be eased if we got some more certainty on
Well,
what that.
Mr. Chairman, I am on a mission that we have to think differently about the way that we do these large-scale programs. We faced it with James Webb. We're looking at it here with SLS Orion. This is just really not smart, and at the end of the day, the technologies expire, the technologies change over a period of 10 or 20 years as we're stretching things out, and then it's like starting all over again, and I just think it is about the dumbest way to do science, and with that, I yield.